Next, to guide us through this dynamic conversation, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Mr. Nick Blunden, the president of Business of Fashion. Mr. Blunden will bring us his wealth of knowledge and expertise, making him the perfect person to lead this dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome. And also joining us our panel are Ms. Anda Rowland, Director of Anderson Sheppard. Welcome. Next we have Mr. Nicolas Morineaux, CEO of Galeries Lafayette China. We also have Mr. Eric Chen, former CEO and current board director of Lanvin Group. Welcome all of you, and now I will pass the stage to our moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was the most wonderful introduction. Thank you. I think we've got our work out to follow that. But I am absolutely delighted to have the opportunity to moderate and host this panel about the Hong Kong opportunity for global brands. As you can tell, we've got a very diverse group of panelists here. So I think we're going to have some very different perspectives. We will go for about 30 minutes, I think. But we will leave some time at the end for any questions. So if you do have any questions, anything that you would like to ask this very esteemed panel, then please do bear those in mind, and we will come back to that at the end. But first and foremost, welcome. Thank you all so much for taking the time to do this, as I'm very much looking forward to it. I wanted to start with the same question to all three of you, because I have some very specific questions for each of you coming up. But I thought to set the scene, we'd start with a very simple but important question that I'd like to get the perspective of each of you on, which is, what are the opportunities that you're focused on in the wider APAC region, and what role does Hong Kong play in those opportunities? So, Anda, given that you're sitting to my left, let's start with you and we'll go left to right. So, opportunities in the wider APAC region and what role Hong Kong plays in that.
So first of all, I'm obviously delighted to be here, and I've learned an awful lot between yesterday and today, and yesterday evening when we had a short discussion beforehand. Just beginning, just a tiny history on Anderson Sheppard. We were founded in 1906. We're not a sort of revitalized, let's say, heritage brand. We've been kind of going on since 1906, looking after customers. We're not fashion, but we're always in fashion. So, for instance, you can see us on the cover of this month's GQ. We're on Ben Affleck in a lovely dinner jacket.
It's a great article too about Savile Row, I believe.
Yes, exactly. So it's really with menswear, in our view, we make a phenomenal product. We believe our suit's one of the best in the world, and that's saying something. Obviously, in Hong Kong is another city that's known for its incredible tailoring, but we believe we're one of the best firms in the world, and we've been coming to Hong Kong for 20 years. We do trunk shows twice a year, and our younger team are very much focused on what's happening in Asia. So that's a great opportunity for us, not only in terms of our customer, but also we want to retain our staff. And our younger team, let's say, who've trained with us between 5 and 6 years, that's how long it takes to become a tailor or a cutter, have all grown up with a focus on Asian culture. Historically, our firm has been very popular in the States because we have a lot of movie stars from the golden age of Hollywood who've been our customers. But actually, the younger team members, of which there are quite a few, are really interested in what's happening in China, in Korea, well, in Seoul and South Korea, and also in Japan, in Thailand now increasingly. And so we see our future on customers and also for the team a lot more towards the East now.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm going to come back to you on the interesting perspective of the history of your business, because it has such an extraordinary history, and how Asia plays out in the future of it. So we'll come back to that. Nicolas, same question to you, if you wouldn't mind. The opportunities that you're looking at in the wider APAC region and how Hong Kong plays a role in that.
Sure. Well, good evening, Hong Kong. Good afternoon, Hong Kong. Really glad to be here today. I'm not sure if you know, but Galeries Lafayette started in Asia, in mainland China, back in 1996. And for maybe some of you may know that Jianan Bouyi opened the very first store, GNBY, and created the name to enter Galeries Lafayette's first shopping mall in Chengdu. It was before the time. It lasted only for a couple of years. but it marks actually the very first chapter of Lafayette within Asia. Today, China is the only subsidiary fully owned by Galeries Lafayette, together with its partner, Hobson, 50-50 on a joint venture. Otherwise, we operate with franchise partners, such as in Jakarta. And very shortly, we're going to open in Mumbai toward the end of the year with top-tier luxury brands, along with lifestyle and premium luxury brands. To your question related with what Hong Kong has to offer. I think Hong Kong is really, for me, the place to scout brands. It's a discussion we had last night. Brands coming either through the landlords. I think today we could meet with Hong Kong Land, with K11, with Hang Lung, with many of you, and thanks a lot for making the time. We exchange information, we scout for brands, we hunt for brands. Okay, that's really the number one, to be the platform. The second one is not necessarily to hunt for the brands coming from the West. That's too easy. Because we do have Galeries Lafayette in Paris, where today the second most visited place in Europe. Maybe some of you know which one is the number one. Eiffel Tower. Okay. So I'm so sorry, it's not Harrods. So we scout for brands, from the West, but now we look at Hong Kong at a place also to help the brands from China to export themselves toward the West. So more recently, for instance, we leverage the place of Hong Kong and all the network we built here in order to gather designers, 120 designers, around the founders, the founders and owners of Galeries Lafayette, in order for them to really be exposed of the talents coming from China. We've done the same also with CEOs and founders of the large groups, as we believe that engagement from emerging designers, but also together with large groups, has to be done slightly differently. That we gathered also around the founding family in order to be able for them, to export further toward the West. So, to conclude on this one, I really see Hong Kong at this place. Not anymore West meets East, which was quite 2000, 2010, but really East meets West more as an export channel.
I love that. Thank you so much. We're going to come back to that East meets West and West meets East. Eric, same question to you, and a little bit of background, if you wouldn't mind, as to the context for your views here.
Yeah, I'm the only one amongst these groups. Actually, I'm from Hong Kong, right? I born here, I raised here. I'm living in Shanghai right now, looking after the Lanvin Group. The wide Asia Pacific is always fascinating to me, because talking about starting from the fourth quarter of 2023, the luxury market actually started going down. And China, I have to be very frank to you, China market is suffering. And the US market actually is suffering even worse, particularly when you talk about 2024. So we were actually looking at Asia Pacific new market. Of course, we were looking at Middle East, but we were also looking at the Southeast Asia, particularly. Of course, when we talk about Asia, we always talk about Japan, Korea. China is a big part of it, of course. But the Southeast Asia, actually, we have a lot of opportunities over there. Because when we consider the population and consider the age group of the population, the average age group of most of the Southeast Asia, we talk about Indonesia, talk about Thailand, Vietnam, they're all below 30. The average age group of the whole country. So it is a huge potential for that. But if you look around amongst all these countries, their capabilities in fashion are very much bit and piece. And I think Hong Kong is the best hub. Actually, we can connect the dots from the supply chain, from the merchandising, from the technology to, how we're able to, we call it internationalize, or we can see Hong Kong is very inclusive. One thing my experience looking at that is when you're looking around in most of the countries in Southeast Asia or Japan and Korea, with all due respect, the inclusivity cannot compare with Hong Kong. If you're from Hong Kong, you're a designer from Hong Kong, you want to establish your brand in Japan, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. It is very challenging. Or if you want to enter into Korea to establish your brand, as a designer from Hong Kong, you can imagine how difficult it is. But the other way around, if you're from UK, if you're from Thailand, if you come over to Hong Kong, it is a completely different landscape. So I think it is an opportunity for us not to make ourselves industrial, but make ourselves to be, we call the platform, or we call the hub that actually we can connect all this for the fashion industry. And that is what, no matter we're talking about international brands, or we're talking about the fashion industry, that is all what we need.
Eric, I'd like to just dive in on one thing there. I think Sunny spoke about it earlier, you've spoken about it there. There is clearly a very interesting opportunity for Hong Kong. I think it's almost inarguable, but that Hong Kong has the opportunity to be a fashion capital, to play an important role in the region. Are there any challenges that you think it needs to overcome, though? The opportunity is clear, but are there any things that need to be done to realize that vision?
One part it is pretty much obvious, for the opportunity, is the education. I know that some of the designers here, you probably can tell, if you look at all the fashion capitals around the world, obviously, London is one of those, Paris, Milano, even Tokyo. If you look around those, all these fashion capitals, they have signature fashion institutions to groom, to educate, or to incubate designers. If you look at Hong Kong, we have Hong Kong Polytech, of course. That is also this is where I graduated as well. But still, we need to have a much more established education system to build that. But on the other hand, I understand to build from scratch, it takes a long time. My suggestion to look at that, another challenge is, we should look at the technology part. Not only look at the design. Design is, of course, part of the puzzles. It's very important, but it's not all. Other thing is about technologies. Technologies in supply chain, technologies about doing, now we all talk about AI, how we get into our industry from the merchandising all the way to product development to, even marketing. Again, this is always opportunity for us, but the challenge is at the moment, we are not strong enough as a hub. If we want to collect the dots, we need to have all these equipped ourselves, and then we are able to collect, all these dots together.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. Nicolas, I wanted to come back to you. You have, I believe, 4 stores in mainland China?
We do have Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and we operate with a partner in Macau.
Yeah. And those cities, I would guess, quite different in the way they operate.
Yeah.
How do you think about engaging with consumers across 4 quite different cities?
Sure. Well, Galeries Lafayette has been operating more or less on the same model for the past 10 years in China. And to your point, it was really time to shake a little bit the way we operate and to adapt to the customer needs. So we went through a journey to look at who are those clients, what are they looking for? And we came up with a few things. The first one, we've been too heavy on fashion. So I'm so sorry because this seminar is about fashion. But to do 50,000 square meter, 80% on fashion is not sustainable. And we were speaking about sustainability earlier. So we are deleveraging slightly fashion from 80% to 60%, number one. But number two, we've been working especially on Beijing, on trying to offering a much more affordable offer, what we call the premium international lifestyle offer. Trying to mix and to curate not only designers from the West, but designers and brands coming from China. So I gave you earlier an example with GNBY, for instance, but it's cooperating also together with the rising group of China, such as LSA Group, for instance, Redstone, together with Yongle and some others. So that has been the second one. The third one, we developed what we call the concept shopping. And it's something I have to say that I'm very proud of the team to have come up with this concept 6 months ago. The idea is to say, our business model is 80% on concession, 20% on wholesale. Well, today, everyone is a little bit short of cash in China. Okay, that's no mystery here. So let's decrease a little bit open to buy, but make sure that we keep it. Let's keep the marketing dollar, because we need to attract the traffic. Okay, but at the same time, let's invest in new brands that we will use to connect our concession brands. So let me give you an example. The gift market. Gift markets, you will have, of course, Jellycat in the middle. Thank you, London. So Jellycat is right in the middle. We are actually the first, the number one distributor in China today for Jellycat.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot. You've asked me yesterday about the brand working really well today, in China from the UK. Yes, she's the one, it's the one. So we're using this brand, but along with 20 other brands that we purchase in order to link all the surrounding concession brands. So we want to avoid this effect of having an empty corridor in the middle of the shopping mall and having no engagement for marketing. So back to your question, how do we engage the clients, whether it's in Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen? We engage the clients through concept, so brands we tailor and we curate all together through a slightly lower price point. As we see that today, China is looking much more at contemporary fashion, is looking at a gift, a reward for oneself, and probably a little bit less than it used to be to top-tier luxury brands, even if top-tier still represent an investment for the future. It takes time. It takes risk. It means sometimes to fail. We have not been always successful on this one. But whenever you craft a concept with 20 brands, you always have one or two being successful. So it's all of this is about taking risk for the benefit of the clients.
And Nicolas, without putting you on the spot, it seems like you've thought very carefully about how you engage consumers in these different cities. Any plans to expand that footprint?
Sure. When the new joint venture was announced back in 2023, the shareholders announced an additional 10 Galeries Lafayette in the next 5 years. And taking over the job, a year and a half ago, we've agreed with the shareholder that it was time to focus on who we are, make sure that we are relevant, we are different, we really are successful in this curation of international brands with a French twist. We continue to hunt for brands and then we bounce back. We are just at a tipping point when we start to have partners actually from mainland China, but also from Hong Kong, asking for consulting. So today, it showcased to me that we are relevant. We've identified a pathway, whether it's within China or a path from China to Paris, that we do believe into as a capacity to accelerate the growth in Europe tomorrow. Now, will we further extend? Yes, in the near future. We have launched our franchise model within China. We have received actually a few requests that we are currently analyzing. So let's see tomorrow. Glad to see you next year and have this talk again.
Thoroughly recommend Hong Kong as a...
Now, that's about Hong Kong, actually. I arrived yesterday lunch, and I actually will have to stay another 1 day because I got a call of site to visit. So, yes, coming back on Hong Kong. Hong Kong is, from a retail standpoint, is overinvested. I've spent 14 beautiful lives here with another luxury group. The Hong Kong requires today, and is asking for differentiation, for new concepts. I think Galeries Lafayette got something to offer. A couple of actually potential partners approached us. So let's see what we're going to build together.
Great. Thank you, Nicolas. And Nicolas mentioned this concept of thinking about who we are and how do we be relevant. And I'm really interested in the context of that. Your business, Anderson Sheppard, dates back to 1906. Very strong sense of who you are and what your position in the market is. Incredible history of the brand. How does that translate here? Do you take what you've always done, bring it here and it plays out the way you would like, or is there a degree to which this narrative around the business localizes in this market?
I mean, we're very lucky because we've always trained and we continue to train. So I think it surprises many people that today we receive at least 6 applications a week for an apprenticeship, either to cut or to make. One of our most famous apprentices was Alexander McQueen, and so we're quite known for apprenticeships, and we've always trained. So we have a young team and obviously a fantastic history, but obviously we're only as good as our last suit. And that is extremely important. Another thing we spoke about yesterday at length was trends in the market. And as we all know, luxury is going through a very tough time at the moment, and there's no necessarily great, horizon, something on the horizon that's going to change that. It plays in our hands, in that we focus on making, and we've all seen those videos talking about making. We've also seen a lot in the press about the quality of making coming out of China that perhaps many people weren't aware of, and recent discussion about tariffs has blown that out of the water, and people are beginning to realize that China is actually, and around Hong Kong and obviously Shenzhen, has been making things beautifully for many years, and actually many thousands of years. I mean, I'm wearing a silk dress and robe made by Burberry a long time ago, but the cloth is obviously from China, and the print is English, and the make is English, but all of that's been going on for many years. And so making is very important in luxury. We make beautifully to the highest standards, so that helps us. Hyper-personalization, we spoke also about styling. So we're not selling only a British style. We speak to our customer. Every suit is a collaboration on a one-to-one basis. We've also benefited from the wonderful schools that we have in the UK. We've spoken about the fashion schools, but many of the universities. And we've seen now for many years a lot of young Chinese students coming over, perhaps for a master's. And one of the rites of passage is coming to have a suit made, perhaps going to Cleverley's or John Lobb to have shoes made, shirts made at Bud. So we've actually recruited and got to know many young customers from Hong Kong and also wider parts of Asia, and got to know more about their style. And anybody who goes to the menswear shows, I'm not sure if there are many people here, but if you do, notably Pitti Uomo or any of the menswear shows in Milan or Paris, many of the best dressed people are from Asia. So we also adapt the way that we style, and what we suggest in our second part of our business, which is ready to wear and online, with a bit of business at Bergdorf's, Isetan, and also Mr. Porter, we adapt that offering to help people style their garments in a way that suits them. So we have to be relevant, because we've existed since 1906, so we've been relevant all that time. And our greatest strength is the one-to-one relationship with our customer. And we see many luxury brands talking now about staff. Well, we've always had wonderful staff who care. And I was talking to Rainey about the Peninsula as a family company, how Sir Michael has really made sure that that continues. It's the same with us. So luxury's coming back to staff, luxury's coming back to making, luxury's coming back to personalization. Obviously sustainability, that's not going away because we all depend on it and our children do. All of those are key values of Anderson Sheppard, which are modern. So we are, we're a heritage brand, but now we look increasingly, now, if one can say that.
And that investment in craft is universally acknowledged, I think. It's so interesting. I must say, I'm excited to hear that you have 6 applications a day.
A week,
for apprenticeships. I'm slightly disappointed. I was thinking of a late life career change, and clearly I'm not going to, my odds are not very good to be a cutter, sadly. Eric, I want to move on to you. You have a unique vantage point, I think, given you know this market so well. Your involvement in Lanvin gives you a unique perspective on what it takes to be successful as an international brand in this region and in this market. Do you have any lessons that you could share with people about how to be successful here?
We actually run the brand globally. And one thing I noticed is I have to criticize my company and my own industry. Luxury need to stop the arrogancy, because we always put out the word desirability, So the word which implies I put up the product, I make it in Europe, either you take it or you leave it. So one of the challenges that we have, because we have customers, of course, in Asia, we have customers in Europe, and we also have customers in US. They all have different body fit. But up to date, we are still not doing the localization. We're still building one fit for all. So turn out during the merchandising process is drive everybody nuts because this hand is too long for the Asian, fit is too short for the American. It's just fit the European models. And turn out, that's why you see the runway show is always the best, but the turn out putting on the customer is totally another issue. So localization is something we have to do. It's not about, when I say localization, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying just put a dragon and a phoenix on the clothes, right? So it's about really making what the customer they want, and the localization, particularly for Asia. One thing that I notice now in the market, other than the product itself, is about why the customer they buy. It is very strong emotional connection with the product. But if you consider the product from the youngs to the design to the fit, it's nothing to do with you. Why do you have the emotional connection with that product? So we have to try to do the localization. Of course, it's go back to the supply chain, it go back to the MOQ, go back to the tech pack, everything. But looking at today's technology, I still believe actually we can break through that and we can engage the customer in a much better way by doing much better localization for our products. Of course, when we can talk about customization, we can talk about couture. We can do all these things, but at the end of the day, we need to do something what the customer they want, but not just try to say because we are the luxury and this is the things that we have. Either you take it or leave it.
I like that. Nicolas, that leads me back. I said I'd come back to this idea of west to east, east to west. You talked about this. That's one of the changes that you've seen. What's driving that? And is that a sustainable shift or is that a temporary change in the market?
Yeah. You've asked a question earlier about consumer preference. And so looking at our 170 brands, we do purchase. So part of the 20% of the business made through wholesale. We looked with the team at where we've got the best sell-through, where we've got the most demand, where we've got the best consistency and probably the best price adaptation. And we realized actually that was back on the spring-summer, was it spring-summer 24, fall-winter 24, that this consistency was coming from China. So we've started speaking with the designers from China. And we've increased our open to buy with them. We got very good results. But the result was encompassing what we were expecting at the beginning. We were hoping, of course, as investors, as distributors, we were expecting a return on investment. But we got more. We got connection with our clients, an emotional connection, able to put together Feng Shengwan or Rohan speaking together with our clients in Beijing, Shenzhen, or Shanghai. We got Shushu Tong, for instance, opening the very first shop-in-shop with us in China with Shenzhen. So we were able actually to capitalize on rising designers, emerging designers, getting much more stable, being recruited, being accepted, being sustained by clients, and who we believe gonna be here for another few years. I spoke with other multi-brands operators, owners, and many of them told me, well, we have not been investing so much on designer from China because it has not been consistent. Maybe something has changed. And that's probably where Hong Kong could have another very good role. Hong Kong got, most importantly, the investment platform, the stability, the operational facilitation, I mean, when it comes to fabrics, when it comes to production, when it comes to finance organization. So if this trend is here to accelerate, why not having Hong Kong actually having been a place for the showroom? The showrooms actually for the designers from China.
Great. I'm very conscious of time. We could keep this conversation going on forever, but I want to, before I open up to questions from the audience, there's one final question I want to ask all three of you, which focuses on the future and what you're most excited about with regard to the opportunity in Hong Kong and the wider region. And Anda, from your perspective?
I think certainly we feel that the whole region's opening up more, and there's a great welcome. And we hope certainly through the consulate and other channels that we can get to know more people. So I think it's feeling very welcoming. As I said, some places aren't feeling so welcoming, but certainly Hong Kong is, and other parts of Asia. So that's what I'm excited about.
Yes, that feeling of being welcome is very tangible, isn't it? Nicolas, from your perspective, what are you most excited about in terms of the opportunity?
Most excited? Well, it started back in November, and thanks again for the invitation for the Hong Kong Fest, November last year. It was about the energy. We all feared that the energy in Hong Kong was dimming down. 2014, 2019, COVID, a lot of bashing, international bashing, and we can see that this energy is here. That's the first time I see such a comprehensive platform. Education, industrial, landlords, all of them represented in the room, several actually designers. So this platform I have not seen anywhere else. So I'm very excited about this one because ultimately as a department store we are hunting for brands, and I think we're going to hunt much more in Hong Kong.
Great. Eric, and the final word on this particular question about the opportunity that most excites you here?
Always found Hong Kong is very unique because, we have the back of China. And where now the mainland China actually is the biggest supply chain that actually can support the industry. And then at the same time, Hong Kong is at the front stage that we're facing towards all the countries, all different markets. As I said at the very beginning, we are able to connect the dots. Another thing always very exciting is because I myself, I'm from Hong Kong, and I know that actually Hong Kong people is very devoted to drive the effort, particularly when we're in difficult time. We went through the SARS, we went through 9/11, we went through all different, very difficult situations, economic downturn, everything. We went through all this in the past 30 years. And every time we walk out from it, not just because of luck, just because, Hong Kong people is very determined, and Hong Kong people is very smart to work our way to work it out. So now is the best opportunity. Tariff can bring crisis, but the tariff also actually bring opportunities because Hong Kong is a tariff-friendly city rather than using tariff to build obstacles. So that is what I really feel exciting about Hong Kong.
That's a wonderfully positive note to end on. But I do want to give the opportunity for any of you to ask any questions. Are there any questions for the panel from the floor? I'm going to pass my microphone over to you, if that's all right.
Hi, I'm Patrick from Patrick McDowell, which is a British brand. You mentioned demi-couture. Obviously, that would also bring with it a more localized supply chain as well. So I just wondered if you had any more thoughts on how that would play out in practice if it was more widely accepted by the industry.
I think it's getting more popular now to have that demi-couture. But the key at the back end, again, is back to the supply chain. We discussed about that last night. I think one of the challenges about the MOQ. But now, actually, in China, there's a lot of suppliers and vendors, actually, they are able to overcome that MOQ. I understand made in China is still to a certain extent been labeled in another way about quality, about it's very low, but it is not the case. I can assure you, China, the supply chain now is amazing because I have supply chain in Italy, I have supply chain over the world in Portugal, in Romania, in Turkey. China is one of the best supply. I mean, but it just, we need a little bit more branding for made in China. But now, but the fact is actually it's doing extremely well. If we want to materialize what we discussed, actually China is the best source to make it happen for the Damnico. So if you have time, spend some time to look at the supply chain, or I can even refer a few to you. You take a look, you'll be really surprised. I mean, what they can do, particularly in product development. Not only about just about with the tech pack and they follow the instruction, not the case. They really can do it.
Thank you. Any further questions before we draw this to a close? I think we've covered so much ground. So I just wanted to say thank you, Anda, Nicolas, Eric, for such an inspiring and informative talk. It's been such a pleasure to moderate it. I want to thank you all for joining us today. So please join me in thanking our panel.
Thank you.